So as you can see from the title of this video, I had the opportunity to spend some time with the new Tesla Model Y launch edition. I got about an hour with it, so this by no means is a full review, kind of just my first impressions, overall look around, and as a 2022 Model Y owner myself, I wanted to see if it was worth upgrading or not. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So funny enough, this was just a normal test drive experience. So anybody, as long as their Tesla dealership has a Model Y launch edition available for test drive, you can do it online, you can do it over the phone. I ended up calling them to see if they had any availability, and they gave me about 45 minutes to an hour with the car. And if you guys have never done a test drive Tesla experience, it's very different from a normal dealership. For one, all you do is you walk in, you check in, they take a picture of your license, and you're all set to go. And if you have a current Tesla, it's even easier for them to kind of log in and see your account. And then they walk you to the car, basically put a destination into the nav. They say, hey, just follow the route. Once you get to the end, tap the home to go back to the exact dealership. And then do whatever you need to do from a testing perspective to see if this is a car that you actually want to get into. So the first thing I did was kind of look around it. I literally have the 2022 Long Range Model Y Edition in the white color, and I parked it right next to this Model Y Launch Edition, which again, you can kind of see the differences side by side. It is a very different car, at least from a visual standpoint, and that's going to be the running theme of this video. There's a lot of quality of life and aesthetic differences between the Model Y of old and the new Model Y. But for the most part, especially if you are coming from an older Model Y or any other Tesla, the experience is going to be very similar. And once you get over the kind of niceness factor and the new kind of finishes and the new touches, you kind of just feel like you're right at home driving the same exact car, especially if you just log into your account and everything just gets pre-populated already. But I do want to talk about those quality of life improvements that they've added, because I do think, again, they just make the experience that much better, especially if you are brand new to Tesla. So I took a little gander around the car. First, I opened up the Frunk. The Frunk is still not motorized, which again, for a $60,000 car, I feel like it should be motorized, especially for a launch edition, but that remains yet to be seen. But once you open it up, the first improvement that I did see is that in the Frunk, which is something that I've always wanted, was that you do have a plug down there that you can remove, so you can use your Frunk as basically a cooler if you're somebody that wants to put food in there, or put ice in there, or put drinks in there, maybe you like to tailgate. I think that's a nice little quality of life improvement. Then if you look at the front spoiler, you do have a brand new camera, which was not there in the old Model Y. If you have the 2022 or older Model Y, you still have some radar sensors down there that kind of give you the distance that you're getting close to something. But if you have a Model Y from 2023 to 2025, there's no camera or sensor down there, so it's a little bit iffy on how close you get to certain things. So it's nice to see that they put a camera down there, which has its automatic little wash and clean off feature, which is awesome. Then of course you look at the front of the car and you have those running daytime lights, which is actually that bar across the front. Those aren't the headlights for those people that are confused. The headlights are right underneath of it, and even though they look small, I didn't really get to test the headlights because I drove it kind of in the middle of the day, but those are going to be the headlights that come with the Model Y. And my current Model Y, and I've never had any issues with headlights being too dim or not bright enough or whatever the case is. But I do think that the new kind of light bar, again, it's going to be fully subjective whether you like it or not. I think it looks very cool. I like the running daytime light. I think it makes it look a little bit meaner overall, as opposed to this kind of bubbly, friendly look that the current headlight situation and front bumper has on the old Model Y. But if you look at it just from the side profile, if you ignore the wheels themselves, it looks pretty much identical to the current Model Y or the old Model Y, depending on what we're talking about. But you do see that you do have the new Aero wheels, which look a little bit nicer in my opinion than the old Aero wheels that I even have right now. I have the black version of the old Aero wheels, but that is what it comes with stock on the launch edition. But you can choose to have the other rims as well. It just lowers the overall range by about 30 miles, and most people would rather have the mileage than the look. But that's another nice thing about the launch edition, albeit it's going to be the most expensive version of the Model Y, but it comes with full self-driving. You have the ability to add the tow hitch at no extra cost. You can pick whatever rims you want at no extra cost. You can pick whatever color you want at no extra cost. And you get a bunch of other little bits and bobs that kind of add up nicely to actually give it a decent value at that $60,000 price point. So now here we have the rear of the new Model Y, which is relatively polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it, but at the end of the day, you either like it right away or eventually you do get used to it. But I actually think it looks great. Of course, at nighttime it'll look a lot better, and it's one of these kind of first rear brake lights that really shines down onto the street. I just wish we were able to get a better look, but again, it is daytime, so it's tough to get an idea of what it's going to look like. But now on the inside is where things kind of start to change up, but also they stay similar at the same time. So this is what I mean about quality of life. So for the most part, the aesthetic differences, they're nice, but they're not going to add anything functional. So you get the ambient lighting throughout the cabin, which is a beautiful thing, but again, not adding any function. It's more of a just cool factor and makes you feel like you have a little bit of a higher quality car. You do have some nice Alcantara finishes as opposed to that fake wood finish that you have on most Model Ys and Model 3s of old. I actually put a carbon fiber cover on mine specifically because I didn't really like how bright that light wood was in my current Model Y. But it is nice to see this Alcantara finish because it is very soft to the touch. But then you get into the driver's seat, the steering wheel is a little bit different, and the first thing you notice is that there is no drive stalk on the right hand side. They did keep around the blinker on the left hand side. So now to get to the steering wheel to get an idea, like I said, you still have your stalk over here for your directions, so your turn signals are over here, which is not in the Model 3. You know, you have your normal kind of controls here for when it comes to windshield wipers. Then you have your autopilot over here, and you know, your voice assistant. The home screen is very familiar. You have your 2 charging pads right here, which are also nicely lined, and they have a little bit different of a form factor. The center console has also been changed up here, as you can see, so it's a little bit more familiar in terms of the Model S and the Model X compared to the Model Y and Model 3 of years past. Ignore all the dirt in there. Again, this is just a loaner vehicle. And then you can see that the seats are perforated. So if I move this out of the way, the perforated seats means that we now have the ability to cool our seats, not just warm them up, which I love to see. So for those of you that are curious, again, there's no drive stalk here, so how's it going to know whether you want to go into drive or reverse? As you can see, I'm in a regular parking spot. There is no car in front or behind me, but I am facing out. And if I put my foot on the brake here, you can see that it knows to go forward because there's no obstruction in front of me and I haven't had to touch anything. And then I press on the gas and now I'm moving forward and it tells me exactly where to go. So of course it'll default to that, but if you need to, again, physically press something, you can tap on here and it'll park the car for you. And then you also have your Prindle up here, which is hard to see. So of course it'll default to that, but if you need to, again, physically press something, you can tap on here and it'll park the car for you. And then you also have your Prindle up here, which is hard to see. As you can see, there is the light P, R, and then the N and the D. But now I kind of want to go to the back of the car to see what that's all about because we do have that display back there, which is interesting. So again, here's the back. You do have the new latch down here, which is the emergency latch to open this up if for some reason the electronics go out. The new door handle, the door knob right here to open it up. This is all very familiar. But again, if you go to the back, the size is going to be the same in terms of how much you have. I'm about 6 feet or 5'11", and that's what it's seated at. And you can see that I do have some room here, which is nice. Even this back here is a lot more premium, whereas before it was kind of an afterthought in terms of, with the older Model Y version or the current one, depending on how you're looking at it, it's kind of just like a fabric that barely has any elastic, versus this is a little bit more tough in terms of it's hard, you know, it's hard shell almost. And now you have this new display. So this whole section is brand new to the rear of the Model Y. And you can see that you do have some controls here. So you have your vent controls to be able to make this, you know, go up or down. You do have the ability to change the seat in terms of heating it up. So you can heat up both the left and the right seat. It looks like the middle seat isn't heated, where at least from a software standpoint, the middle seat looks to be heated in the older Model Ys. But you also have the ability to move the front seat. So if I bring this forward, you can see that this is actually moving forward as well, which is huge for people that use car seats right here. For parents that use car seats, this is always very annoying when somebody does sit in the passenger seat, reclines it all the way back, and forgets that there's a car seat here that needs to be considered. You do also have the ability to, you know, have some multimedia, to play some games, to play music from back here, or at least control the music, but it's still going to be using the sound system of the entire car, of course. So you do have plenty of headroom too, about, I want to say 6 inches here, maybe 4 inches of headroom overall for somebody who's my height at 5'11", and then you do have the whole trunk back here. I appreciate all the new little details. And now that begs the question, is this going to be worth it if you currently have a Model Y that you're happy with? We'll answer that at the end of the video, but overall, I do think that this new fit and finish of the Model Y is a great new successor to the current Model Y. So here we have the trunk. It's basically identical to the older Model Y, or the current Model Y, depending on who you talk to. But the one nice thing here is that these are going to be motorized. So if I bring this down, it is now motorized, whereas before, you did have the button here with the old Model Y, and it would kind of bring it down automatically, albeit it was kind of like a latch release as opposed to an actual motorized motor. But this time around, now we can actually bring this back up. So if we press it again, it now brings itself back up, fully motorized, which is amazing to have. But outside of that, you do have, I believe, technically a little less cubic feet in terms of space, but not that much more. If anything, it looks exactly the same. You still have your sub-trunk, which is down here, nice to have, plenty of room. So this is great for if you are needing a lot of luggage space in a small form factor. And then, this could be just me, but this feels like it's a little taller, but that could just be me. We'll press that and it goes right back down, very familiar. But now, the driving experience is where things you really start to notice a difference. For instance, like I said, I have the 2022 long-range Model Y, and for noise dampening, it's actually pretty decent, and it was a lot better than the original Model Y, and way better than the early day Model 3s. But this Model Y Launch Edition, I was driving it in the New Jersey streets with tons of potholes, lots of traffic, things moving around. This is probably the best situation to test how soft and how dampened the sound can get in the cabin of the new Model Y, and you can really tell the difference of how much quieter it is. I drove for a little while with no music playing, and normally in my Model Y, if I don't have music playing, I can kind of hear what's going on outside, but with this one, it's night and day better, so if that's something that's very important to you, it is something to heavily consider. And then overall, everything just feels a little bit tighter and clickier and just feels a little bit stiffer, but in a good way, in a high quality way. Like the knobs on the steering wheel themselves, they feel really good, they're easy to use, they make sense, there's no like finicky nature to it, whereas with older models, especially I had a 2018 Model 3, there was a lot of bits and bobs in there and buttons that were like less clicky than others, and there wasn't a lot of uniformity across everything. Things just felt a little bit cheaper, whereas now they do feel like, again, they've hit their stride. It's now been 8-9 years of them working on this kind of cheaper level of their electric vehicles or their EVs. So now they've kind of mastered their manufacturing process and mastered the material science to a degree. I'm not going to say that there isn't room for improvement, there always is, but everything just feels a lot more buttoned up overall, which I think is a welcome addition. It's going to maybe convince a lot more people to move over to the Model Y. So to round it off, let's answer the question of should you upgrade to a new Model Y if you are coming from an old Model Y? It really depends on your situation and how you finance your car and if you own it outright and things like that, because Tesla does have a bunch of deals. But for me personally, I'm going to wait for the non-launch edition because I just don't want to spend 60 grand on a Model Y. But I do see myself getting the new Model Y when it does come out with the regular all-wheel drive long-range edition, because I do believe it'll be anywhere between $44,000 to about $49,000 depending on what incentives there are and how they actually start to tier this out from a price point perspective. So again, I think it's a welcome upgrade. All the quality of life improvements do add up to give you a nice new package where it feels new enough, where you do feel like you're getting something new, but also familiar enough if you are a current Model Y owner or Tesla owner, where it's easy for you to just log in, start driving as if it's still your same car. The outside of it looks meaner, it looks cooler in my opinion, but that's all subjective. Some people don't like it, they think it's a little bit more polarizing, so it just depends on what you think about from a look perspective. But overall, I would recommend this to anybody looking to get into the EV space, looking to get kind of that mid-tier SUV that still has 5 rows, but is a little bit bigger than a sedan, but doesn't want to have a 3-row car. It kind of fits in that perfect middle ground from a price point, size, and just overall cost effectiveness perspective. But that'll do it for this video, everybody. If you did make it to the end, leave a little car in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. Let's talk about this in the comments down below of whether this car is worth it or not at that $60,000 price point, who's gonna get it, who this car is for. I'm always curious to know what people think when it comes to Teslas because everybody has an opinion on that car. But that'll do it, everybody. If you wanna watch more videos like this one, check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everybody.